Okay, it is Thursday, October 7th, 2021. This is Louise Bruley lying in front of us here. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Annette. Happy birthday.
Thank
Grandma
you.
Bruley, come
All right, so Mom has agreed to answer a bazillion questions because we decided that this was going to be a nicer gift to have than just photographs of Mom. So I'm going to start reading off the questions and she's going to answer, and if we go off track, we go off track. All right, what is your full name and how did your parents decide to name you?
My full name is Mary Helen Louise, and my parents decided they liked Maurice Chevalier's song, Extra Little Bird Seems to Whisper Louise. Not extra, but every little bird. And the Helen, my dad really wanted me to be called Helen, but my French grandmother kept saying Hélène. And my dad said, no, let's change it to Mary Helen Louise.
So we call you Louise now.
Yeah.
Okay. Where were you born?
Hawkesbury, Ontario, July 27th, 1941. And I was born at home. I wasn't born in a hospital.
Were you the first child of the family?
No, I was the second child. The first child was born and weighed under 4 pounds and lived about 3 hours. And my mother was terrified for me because she thought that I would be small. I weighed 5 pounds. And somehow I survived.
Tiny baby. Was your mom nervous about having a child the second time, small?
My mom told me she was terrified because she'd lost her first.
Right.
And she said she prayed a lot and tried to keep herself quiet so that I'd be a healthy birth.
How would you describe your parents?
My mom was elegant. She liked to present things nicely. She'd set the table beautifully for us, make tea parties sometimes at lunch when we came home from school. She liked to stretch the dollar so that we could make ends meet. We were poor, and the kids actually didn't even know it. And my dad worked 2 jobs all his life to make ends meet. And he was spoiled. He came from a family where they had maids and a lot of help. And he was disowned because he married French and Catholic, of course.
What was his family background?
His family background, his father was a bank manager and his father and mother divorced when he was 3. His uncle was a judge in L'Oreal, and the judge had lost his wife, and the judge was Dad's mother's brother. They were brother and sister. So they got together. They had 3 sons each, and they raised the 6 boys together. Dad was the baby of the gang.
How did your parents meet?
My mother was cashier at A&P in those days, and it was a job that usually men had, but she was the only woman on till because she spoke both languages fluently. And they met at the grocery store.
Did they ever tell you who made the move first?
No, they didn't talk about stuff like that. I wouldn't have dared question them. They would have been mortified.
Well, thankfully you and Dad are different. Otherwise this video wouldn't be happening.
No.
What did your parents do for work?
Mom, as I said, was a cashier, and before that she was taken out of school after grade 8. She wanted to be a teacher, but the boys in her family had to be educated, so she had to go to work, and she went to work as a maid. And then she learnt English working for the Say family, and she was smart enough that she could read. She read novels like mad, especially in English, much more than French. And she ended up working as a cashier, as I said earlier. Dad worked a lot in pulp and paper mills, and when he was in his late 30s, he decided to study a bit, and he became a stationary engineer so he could run the steam plant in a paper mill.
How many sisters do you have?
I have 3 sisters and 1 brother.
And how would you describe all of your siblings?
Well, my brother's aloof. I'll start with him. He's the baby of the family, and 13, 14 years difference between Patrick and myself. So I wasn't around him a lot. I knew him as a little kid, but that's about it. My sisters, oh, they are gregarious. They're a lot of fun. They like to bring joy in people's families and in people's lives. They like to party and they like to celebrate life. And what else can I say? They are generous beyond, actually overly generous. They've been visiting me every second day, and I get calls from Cornwall 2-3 times a week from Francine, because Francine doesn't live here. But Carol and Joyce, they dress to the nines to come over, jewelry, nail polish, they always look so nice. They come with coffee or flowers or soup or vegetables or pickles, or they're here 3-4 times a week. I couldn't ask for better.
Do you want to keep going?
Yeah.
How many your mom had miscarriages?
Mom had 8 children altogether. The first was a little girl that died because she was under 4 pounds when she was born. They fed her with an eyedropper and she didn't last a day. And then she lost 2 boys. One in Marathon, he was born with a heart lesion. He had a lesion in the heart, and he never even made it out of the hospital. And Marathon didn't even have a cemetery. They had to bless a piece of land and bury him there. And then my own brother Peter died of meningitis. He was 1.5 years, and he died in Hawkesbury when my mother was in the hospital. My mother had tuberculosis and was in the hospital 19 months. And Peter died then.
Did you name your son Peter because of that, or is that just a
No, I
coincidence?
did name him. I called him Peter Terrence.
Yeah.
Because my dad was very ill and I wanted to have a grandfather's name, and I already had David Albert. He was named after his dad. So I gave Terrence to Peter as a name because Dad was dying, and I thought it would make him feel better. And of course, when Robert was born, I named him Robert Angus after Grandpa Bruley.
How would you describe yourself as a child?
Well, until Mum was ill, I was a naughty, mischievous kid, I know that. Curious and into everything and questioning a lot, I know that. And I kept my mother hopping from the stories I've heard. But after my mother was in the hospital, I had to grow up very fast. I was the oldest. And I felt that I was handed over the reins. You have to take care of your little sisters. And I tried the best I could. And I had to grow up fast. And I took school and everything extremely seriously.
Did your sisters see you do that? Did they start to?
Well, I don't know if they were really aware because they were much younger. I don't think Francine remembers anything, but I know myself, Dad would say, you make sandwiches for the girls for lunch, and, and you do this and you do that, and I did the best I could.
How old were you at the time?
When Mum was in the hospital,
Yeah.
I was in grade 4.
Oh.
10. And I took care of myself from then on. I lied about my age, and I worked at the 5 and 10 Continental store. I was in grade 8, and I said I was in high school. I said I was 17, and I was all of 13 or 14.
Did they ever find out?
Oh, they found out sooner or later because the manager, Mr. Belanger, hired his daughters too, and they knew me, and he kept me on anyway because I was bilingual. And he gave me the most fun counter, the cosmetic counter. So lipsticks and perfumes and and he knew that I was honest. And then he hired Francine even.
Trusting the family members.
Excuse me.
Did you ever resent having to take over those responsibilities?
No, I just accepted it. I wanted to make my dad proud, and I didn't want him to worry because he was working shift work. He was working in the paper mill in Terrace Bay at the time, and my mother was in the hospital. We'd moved from Terrace Bay to Scriber so that we could be in a little apartment, and the owner could check in on us every once in a while.
So then I'm going to skip one of the questions here and talk about that. Can you talk about where your family lived and
Oh my God,
how that evolved?
we moved an awful lot after Mom came out of the hospital. Well, first of all, she got ill. We were living in Terrace Bay, and Dad sold the house that we owned there, and Mom came down east to Hawkesbury because she was going to the hospital in Cornwall, and Aunt Bertha took care of Carol, Aunt Bertha and Uncle John. Uncle Rainey and Tante Juliette took care of Peter because they had 4 boys, so Peter suited that family best. So okay, we started off Marathon, Terrace Bay, Scriber, Hawkesbury, and we stayed in Hawkesbury all those years after Mom got better.
I'm going to take 2 seconds because
Incredible too.
I want to make sure that this is recording properly, and then I'm going to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is your favorite childhood memory or memories?
Playing with my little sisters. We used to put together little plays and stand on the old cedar chest as our theater and put on little plays. We had a lot of fun doing that. And singing. Mom always sang, so we used to sing a lot together. And we used to like to dance. I can remember Mom bought an old record player, and she bought blue suede shoes for us. And we came home from school and she had blue suede shoes playing, and we all started to rock and roll. Yeah.
Did anybody play musical instruments in the family?
Joyce played by ear, and she automatically would play, but nobody, well, I took music in high school, by the way. Francine did too. I played viola, Francine played piccolo. But nobody played anything except Joyce, and I don't know where Joyce learned how to plink the piano.
Plink. What were some of the musical artists that your parents listened to that you and your sisters still listen to today?
Oh, Frank Sinatra, Old Blue Eyes, and
Big band.
Big Band. My dad loved Big Band. He liked Artie Shaw the best, and he liked Glenn Miller and Guy Lombardo. And every time Guy Lombardo came on TV, Mom used to say, "I danced to his music in Old Orchard in the States." The Saves had gone on a holiday, and they took Mom with them because they knew that Jimmy, their youngest, who was about 16 or 17, would want to go out and dance to these big bands. Mom was 22. So they took Mom so she could go dance with them. Isn't that sweet, though? They must have loved her like a... And I played bridge with Jimmy Say later on in life. And he told me about Mom doing that for him, and he said, "I never forgot Florence." He said she let me go and dance. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to go because I was just a punk, a kid.
Cute. How was love expressed in your childhood home?
Oh, we had a lot of little pats on the back and a lot of encouragement and little kisses here and there. And Dad used to love to tuck us into bed at night and say a little prayer and kiss us. And Mom was very busy because she had 4 kids in 5 years, you know. So she was quite busy. So she didn't have enough time to really hover over us, but she loved to dress us nicely and do our hair and show us our hairdo in the mirror and say, there, now you look like Shirley Temple. Yeah, there was a lot of love when we were younger, but when Dad got older, he had diabetes and his temper took over, because diabetics that don't know that they're ill have a hard time coping. They're very impatient people. And I know that's what happened to Dad when he was finally diagnosed. It was too late. The damage had been done.
Did your parents distinguish between roles in the home, homemaker, parenting, things like that?
Oh, my mom was the disciplinarian. Mom was, and she, when things got out of hand, just wait till your dad gets home. I'm going to tell him.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. Well, mothers get fed up because they're with the kids the longest time. So after a while, they have to abdicate. They have to say, "That's it. I can't take it anymore."
Did your dad do any housework?
He helped with the dishes once in a while. He liked to cook fish and mushrooms, and to say that he set the table and stuff like that, no. And laundry, no. Vacuuming, no. But he was working 2 jobs all the time, so he really had no time to. And he came from a background where they had maids, for goodness sakes.
What lessons were stressed in your household from your parents?
Honesty. Say what's on your mind. Respect people. Don't laugh at other people until you've walked in their shoes. Sharing. Togetherness. Being, support your family with what you say and what you do. They were all very good teachings.
I'm going to kind of skip backwards a little bit. Did your parents publicly display affection between themselves in front of the kids? Were they affectionate in front of you guys, or?
No, but they liked to go out and dance. Dad was a hell of a good dancer. He was a big man, but he was light on his feet, and boy, could they dance.
How was family conflict resolved?
Oh, a lot of screaming and arguing. And then people wouldn't talk anymore, and then we'd look at each other and start to laugh and kiss and make up. I can remember having a spat with Joyce, and we were little, maybe I must have been 8 and she must have been about 7 and a half. Anyway.
How's that possible?
We were...
You gotta be at least 9 months apart.
Oh, we're 13, no, sorry, we're just, yeah, that's right. We are 13 months apart, so, you know, let's say we were just a year apart. I think I must have been 8 and she must have been 7, but anyway, it was, you know, they took a picture of us and we laughed and laughed afterwards. My Aunt Bertha said, "That's it, you girls." She put 2 chairs facing each other, sit in front of each other, and I don't want any laughing, but you have to keep looking at each other. So within 3 minutes, we were laughing our heads off.
I forgot about, we didn't talk about it a bit, where you Aunt Joyce and Aunt Francine lived, and Aunt Carol was separate, with Aunt Bertha and Aunt Bertha's role in your family.
Oh, Aunt Bertha was our second mother. Aunt Bertha and Uncle John couldn't have kids. They did adopt later in life, but they couldn't have kids, so they would borrow us and play with us as if we were little toys. They'd giggle and play with us and feed us and tickle us and dress us up and treated us like little toys. So Aunt Bertha got really attached to us. She did that too with one of my cousins, because she was the godmother for Roger. And she was my godmother also, so she borrowed Roger off and on too. So Roger and I are the same age, so we'd have fun with Aunt Bertha. And Uncle John loved to cook for us. He loved to make pancakes and French toast. And he always had 2-3 gallons of maple syrup, and boy, the syrup flowed. He had 2 kitchens. He had the regular kitchen and a summer kitchen with a big bench table, and in the summer he'd stoke up the stove and cook for us. He just loved that when we visited in the summer when we lived up north. But when Mum was in the hospital, it was a different story. We were older. Joyce, Francine, and I ended up going to the boarding school in Ventlikill, and Dad was working in Cornwall, and it was a pretty sad time for Mum to leave her kids, you know, and to not have anything to do with her kids. We couldn't even visit her. We weren't allowed. 19 months in the hospital, poor woman.
What did Aunt Carol do? She's with Aunt Bertha?
She went with Aunt Bertha and Uncle John, and that's the year that they adopted a little boy. So Carol was like the older sister to Michelle that was adopted. But unfortunately, Michelle, at the age of 5, actually on my birthday, he died of meningitis at St. Justin's Hospital in Montreal. So they lost a little boy that they cherished so much.
How did Aunt Bertha, Uncle John deal with that?
Uncle John had to protect Aunt Bertha because she went into a major, major depression. She couldn't even go to the funeral or the funeral home. She stayed in bed a good 6 months, just so depressed. She wanted to die. And we would try to go and visit her and cheer her up, but nothing would work. She was swept off her feet with pain.
Grief.
Yeah.
Aunt Carol was there for that? Living there still?
Aunt Carol was there for a while, yes. She was still off and on there, yeah. And also in the summer, we lived with Aunt Bertha.
So you came back from
We came back from the convent.
the convents.
The
lived with
boarding
them.
school, yeah.
What did you learn from your parents that you've passed along to your kids? Or used in your parenting?
I used in my parenting, oh my goodness. Practically everything that they taught us. Honesty, openness, love of family, respecting other people. Being thankful for what you have. To be happy with what you have. I can remember Robert, we used to call him the wanting boy because he played a lot with Danny Brown, and Danny, of course, being an only child, had everything under the sun. And Robert would come home and I want what Danny has, and I'd sit down and explain to him, Robert, Mrs. Brown has 1 child, I have 4. Mrs. Brown buys 2 pairs of jeans, I have to buy 8. Mrs. Brown buys 5 t-shirts, I have to buy 20. And so on and so forth, to make him understand that we were doing the best we could with what we had and be happy with what you've got. So I tried to pass on that and our faith. I tried hard to pass our faith on, but not hard enough, obviously.
Do you think that we have to be practicing our faith in the Roman Catholic Church to be faithful?
No, I think you can get to God other ways, but the Catholic Church has sacraments that other churches do not have, and they've been proven. The Eucharist, there are documentation of over 100 proof that the Eucharist is true. And when you have proof like that, and that there's scientists and doctors around the world that have tried to refute it, and they can't, you know damn well that that's the right faith, because that doesn't happen in any other faith. And miracles. My mother had a miracle.
What was that?
Dad drank, and my mother decided that she'd make a sacrifice for the rest of her life. As poor as we were, her favorite drink was coffee. She gave up drinking coffee for the rest of her life, so Dad would stop. Dad stopped and he was cured. He had a little drink every once in a while, but there were no more drunken episodes. And she also was cured of her TB. She was in stage 3 when she went into the hospital. People around her were dying like flies. She survived, and there were no antibiotics in those days. Out of the 8 that went in together, only 2 came out, and my mother was one. And Aunt Carol's had a miracle too, with her cancer in the mouth. They took part of her tongue out, and then they said they had to take more out, and then she'd never speak again. She speaks better since the last operation. The doctors and the nurses could not believe their ears. That's another miracle. And she knows it. She will tell you it's a miracle.
Has she told you why she thinks one of the reasons she made it through cancer?
I sent her, I had a golden miraculous medal. This one here, I had it in gold, and I had a golden chain. And this is the same medal my mother wore in the hospital. I sent her that medal, and I said, hang on to that and just ask for the miracle and believe. And she got the miracle, and she knows it. And she will tell you herself. So when you have proof like that, and you don't have to go far, just go to Montreal to the St. Joseph's Oratory. You'll see the miracles there. People with polio completely cured, walking straight, no crooked bones, no bad joints, completely cured. Those are miracles, because that doesn't happen unless God puts his hand in it.
Is your faith what's one of the strongest things that is helping you through this process?
Yes, my faith is helping me through this, and that's why I keep saying I'll be okay. Because God promised he'd be with us till the end of time. And I know that's what's helping me through it. I know that, because if I didn't have a strong faith, I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably take those pills by the bottle fully. They're here. I could do myself away, but there's 100 pills right there.
Do you want to take a break, or do you want to keep going?
No,
Want to take a break?
please.
Okay, it is Friday, October 8th. This is my mom, Mary Helen Louise Bruley, and we are continuing on with her questions about her life. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Annette.
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good, thanks.
That's good. I like to hear that. All right, tell us about your education from childhood all the way through to adulthood.
Oh my, it's a real saga. I went to English-speaking schools up to grade 4. Then I was in a convent school, and I'd had no background in French, so the teacher allowed me to do everything in English. And I went to grade 5, but again I was in a French school here in Hawkesbury. And the nuns did not agree that I should do geography and all the other subjects in English, that I should do everything in French, and French, of course, being a subject. So I repeated my grade 5 to learn French. Went to a bilingual high school. I enjoyed my high school, and I did very well. Then married Dad, and there was work in between, of course, but then Dad had cancer. So I went back to university. I had David and Peter at the time, and I did a BA, a B.Ed, and then I decided that should anything happen to Dad, I wouldn't be earning enough money as a teacher. I'd need more to raise children, because by that time we had you in it. And then I was expecting Robert. So I did a master's degree in curriculum development. And then I studied for the government papers for supervisory officer, which meant that I could be a director of education or a supervisor in a board of education. I decided to do all that because with 4 children and the way the world was going, I knew I had to pay big money if I was going to educate these kids. So that's my education.
How was it like juggling going back to school after having
Well,
kids?
it was rough. I hired a housekeeper every second week. And when I did the B.Ed, I had a babysitter for UNET and for Robert. And I gave up a lot of stuff. I couldn't go out with the girls. I couldn't go bowling. I couldn't go nights off. I was busy between cooking the meals and organizing the clothes and getting my work done. It was pretty stressful, but I took it in stride.
Did Dad change his schedule at all once you started?
Dad, with his teaching schedule, he had longer periods off because through all that I was teaching high school. So I wasn't at home twiddling my thumbs. I was working full time.
So you're working full time teaching high school.
Where
were you teaching? Hammersholt?
I was teaching at Hammersholt. I was teaching French and English.
Plus you and Dad raising a family, plus you studying full time.
Yes. Oh, I had a lot of pots to mix. That's for sure.
I'm sorry. What did Dad do?
Dad, because of his schedule at Lakehead, he was able to visit the schools when they invited parents in, because his schedule was much more flexible than mine. Mine, you don't have a flexible schedule when you're teaching high school. If I'd asked for time off, I would have had to go to a school meeting or whatever during the day. I would have had to pay a substitute teacher myself, and I didn't want to lie and say that I was sick, so I let Dad go.
And then what jobs have you held from childhood all the way through
Oh my God.
adulthood?
My God, I babysat. I worked at a 5 and 10. I worked as a secretary for an accountant. Then I worked as a lab technician at a pulp and paper research company. I was working with a doctor that was in charge of an electron microscope, so I learned a lot how to run it and how to prepare samples for it. And after that, I did some after that we were married and moved to Syracuse first. Worked as a secretary there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and when we moved to Thunder Bay, I put my name on the supply teacher list, and they call me in for French all the time. And that's when I started back at the university. So, had lots of jobs. And then after that, when I got fed up with teaching, I went to the Ministry of Education. I went to the Regional 1 in Thunder Bay for the whole district. And then I went to the main office in Toronto.
How long were you at the office in Toronto?
6 years.
And then you retired.
I took early retirement.
Why did you say fed up with teaching, using those words specifically?
Well, I loved my teaching, but it was no longer challenging me. It became too easy. It came so easy at a point that I didn't have to work hard to prepare lessons. It was too easy, so I needed a challenge.
Okay. Did you want to say anything else about your work? Did you enjoy working at the office in Toronto?
I enjoyed it all. I enjoyed teaching high school. I enjoyed working at the ministry. I enjoyed developing education law. It was fun.
If you could restart, would you have pick a different kind of job, or Even just for fun, what else do you think you would have been good at or done and enjoyed doing?
I thought of being an airline stewardess when I was young, and my mother kept saying, "You'll be a target for pilots." So there's no way I'm letting you go.
What was attractive about that job?
The traveling,
Yeah.
the different countries, and the traveling, and glamorous, because in those days the stewardesses were glamorous women.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe I could fit the bill, who knows?
What about as an adult have you thought about?
No, I
Others?
wouldn't change anything else, because teaching allowed me to have some summer holidays with the kids. Even if I studied most of my summers, it gave me weekends with the kids, and it gave me the same schedule as my family.
It's a lot of teaching in the family. Dad
Yes.
taught at university. Aunt Joyce is a teacher.
Yeah,
David taught music. David taught music in school.
yeah.
Science too, I think he taught.
He taught science, geography, music, yeah.
Okay, so moving on to you meeting Dad.
Oh, that's pretty straightforward.
Well, wait, before you met Dad, who did you date?
Oh, you don't have to know that.
Yes, we do.
I dated Jean-Louis Bedard, married to a friend of mine called Lucille Hott. I dated Guy Paget and Roland Lantier. But it didn't last long. My serious dating was with Dad.
But you got engaged before Dad.
I got engaged, but I was too young. I was just out of high school, and he was supposed to go and study, and I found out that our personalities didn't match at all, so that was the end of it.
You broke it off.
I broke it off, yes.
Was he upset?
Oh my God, he came to the house begging my mother to get us together again.
Why did he love you? Why did he say he loved you and wanted to marry you?
I was his first girlfriend, so I think that was it. But I meet him, I say hi, and we've been at a couple of parties where he's been at, and we're fine.
Yeah. How did you and Dad meet?
That's a real funny situation. I was beefing up the electron microscope. You have to run it until it reaches a certain temperature, but you've got to run cooling jackets through it so that it doesn't get so hot that it burns the sample, because you've only got about 30 seconds to take pictures before the samples disintegrate. And, you're magnifying it thousands of times, so you have to be quick at your job and keep the machine cool. Well, a pipe burst on the cooling jacket over lunchtime. 1:15, there's a knock at my lab door, and I hear, "What the hell's going on up here?" And there's Dad with his report in his hand, written in ballpoint, written in ink. And of course the water had fallen on it, and everything was a big blur. And when he saw me, he said, "Oh, haven't I seen you on the golf course?" And I thought to myself, oh yeah, a summer student. I would never go out with a summer student. They're just such big windbags. And I said, "Yeah, you saw me on the golf course." I said, "On ladies' night."
Was Dad creeping at the golf course on ladies' night?
But after that, he asked me for a date, and I started to ask questions and found out that he was working full time. He wasn't a summer student.
When did you know you wanted to get married to Dad?
After the third date, I knew that he was the guy for me. I just knew it. I told my mother, and my mother said, "Are you insane?" I said, "No." I said, "He's got all the qualities I'd like."
Nice. What did your parents think of when they first met him?
They thought he was too old for me.
How old is Dad?
At the time, he was all of, 24.
He's 3 years older than you?
Yeah, but he had a bit of a receding hairline. So they thought that he was way too old for me. And I said, "Are you guys mad?" I said, "I'm not going out with him for his hairline."
They turned a corner,
Oh,
obviously.
they turned the corner. They loved him. Yeah.
What did they say about him after that? What did they think of him?
Oh, they thought he was gentle and kind and polite and nice to talk with, and they really appreciated him.
When and where did you guys get married?
We got married at St. Jude's, July 6th.
In Hawkesbury.
Yeah, 1963, 58 years ago.
Who attended the wedding?
Oh, our families, of course, as best as can be, because the gang from Thunder Bay couldn't afford to come down. It was too damn expensive. But Grandma Bruley came with Aunt Rosie and her husband, Uncle Joe Allard. And on my side, of course, lots of uncles and aunts, and my sisters and best friends. And
who are your bridesmaids?
oh my goodness, Sandra, Aunt Sandra, as you know her, the pool girl, the girl that plays pool.
Yep.
And Joyce and Francine. And our best man was, oh my God, not my best friend, my God, Eddie Warda. How could I forget his name? Poor Eddie. He's been so faithful to us. He sent us a card every anniversary, never missed a beat. Can you imagine?
And I'm going to throw in a personal question, and I'm assuming because you and Dad were very faithful even back then to the Roman Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
You were both virgins when you got married?
I was, and I'm sure Dad was too.
Well, we won't go into those details.
No.
Where did you guys honeymoon?
Oh, we went to the Adirondacks, and we went a little bit of mountain climbing, and we had a motel on the lake. We went water skiing, and we rented a boat, and we had little barbecues, and it was very nice. It was a good way to start off a wedding, a life, you know.
A life together?
Yeah.
You guys were gone for a week?
Yeah, we were gone for a week, and then from there we went to Syracuse to rent a place because Dad was going to to look into his courses and everything else, and to look at what the rentals were, and we found out what was available for married students. Yeah.
And you were there for a year?
David was born there. We were there a year and a half almost.
Year and a half. And then where'd you move after that?
Thunder Bay.
Why did you guys make that decision?
Because Dad got a job in Thunder Bay at Lakehead University.
That's where his side of the family
And his side of the family was there, and he wanted to make sure that his mother was well taken care of. In spite of having 3 brothers living there, he didn't trust them. That's how I look at it, because he really wanted to be there to help her out. And she was self-sufficient for the longest while.
She was. Dad's just a busybody, controlling issues.
Oh, that's it, all right. Oh, yeah.
Fixer.
Yeah.
And then when did you move to Toronto?
We moved to Toronto, my goodness, 1987 or 88?
88.
88?
No, it might have been 87.
Yeah.
It was 88.
Because I was offered a
88.
job at the main office in Toronto, and I wanted the experience, and I felt the kids were growing up, and if they wanted to study, there was more opportunity in Toronto than in Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay had Centennial College and Lakehead, but they didn't offer all the different things that a big city would offer. Plus, I wanted to get closer to my family, and that was closer.
Mm-hmm. Somewhere in between a little
Yeah.
bit. Who moved with you?
Of course, Robert and Annette and
Where were David and Peter?
Albert. Peter was studying out at SAIT, Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, and David was at McGill studying there too. So
I think Peter had graduated already.
if Peter had graduated, he was working out west at first. He started working in Vancouver.
Yeah. So how has your love for Dad evolved over the years?
Oh my goodness, I love him.
You know what? Maybe we should, better question first, how do you describe Dad?
I describe Dad as a gentle soul, wanting to please, very calm personality. He likes to bring peace. He's helpful to a point that sometimes he gets in your way. And faithful, and what else can I say about him? He still treats me like a queen. He still opens the car door for me, which after 58 years of marriage. And whenever I'm in need of anything, he wants to solve the problems. He wants to fix everything. So he's, I'd say, extremely helpful and loving, very loving and kind.
And then back to that first question, how has your love for Dad evolved from beginning to now?
I love him more now than I did. Because he's given me his life. He's given me support through absolutely everything. He's made my life easy. He's bent over backwards to make things nice for me. And I find that my love for him is deeper than ever. Because I'm the one with the short temper and I'm the one that's impatient. He balances me out because he's patient, I'm not. He's calm, I'm not. Yeah.
What do you think you've given Dad?
I've tried to give him my best. I've tried to give him support in his work. I've always encouraged him to do what he wants to do. And of course I've given him kids. And I've put him up on a pedestal.
How so?
He's so humble. He's so humble. He doesn't even want to wear his engineering ring because he's afraid it will put people ill at ease. Because he's educated and not everybody is. That humble to a fault. And I've tried to push that out of him, to make him appreciate what he has, what he is, and what he's accomplished. That's about what I've given him. And love, of course. I've tried to make his home comfortable, feed him well, keep him healthy. That I know I've done because he's the only Bruley that didn't have a heart attack or needed bypasses. I did that on purpose.
What do you think is your favorite thing about Dad? Out of all those qualities you've described.
His silly sense of humor. He has it. I have to move to get more
Yeah,
comfortable.
it's okay. Do you want help?
No, I'm okay. There. His silly sense of humor comes up with things that he thinks they're funny. They're not funny at all. And he catches me by surprise with all these silly things. Oh, excuse me.
Do you have a favorite memory of you and Dad out of just directly to do with your relationship?
Oh, I have too many favorite memories. I couldn't pick one.
No.
No, I couldn't pick one. I have too many.
How did you and Dad resolve conflict in your marriage?
Well, we'd have our moments and then we'd stay apart for a few minutes or a few hours and get back together and resolve it, and we never went to bed mad at each other. And we never had major fights. The biggest conflict for us was Robert's situation. That created a lot of tension in our marriage. But we didn't know Robert was ill, so it's to be pardoned and forgotten.
Did you talk about how you would deal with conflict when you were getting married?
No, because we'd never had an argument. Yeah.
What do you wish for Dad after you've gone?
Oh my God, I wish peace and comfort for him. And I wish that he remembers and doesn't spend his time moaning and grieving and wasting his time. I wish him peace, and I wish him good memories, and yet I know he won't. I think he'll be devastated, but I don't wish him that. Because 58 years is a lifetime.
Do you call yourselves best friends?
Best friends for sure.
Your family here, one of the reasons you guys moved here was to be with your family, your side of the family.
Yeah, I thought we'd have a few good years together before we started to depart. But
When I'm going to skip backwards to the beginning of here when we were talking about you moving around. When you guys retired, where did you move? From Toronto?
From Toronto we moved here, and then Robert was acting up so much we didn't know what the hell was going on, so we moved to Windsor area, to Bell River.
And then you've moved.
And we helped Robert out as best we could, and then found out he was bipolar, and like all bipolar patients, he doesn't take his meds half the time, and he has trouble believing that he's mentally ill, and has trouble accepting all this. And after we got to the point that we felt that there was nothing more that we could do, and we were getting older and he had to learn to be on his own, he couldn't rely on us forever, because we were both, Dad was 82 and I was 79, so we decided that's it. So we moved back here
To be with your
to
family.
be with family for the
Yeah.
last few years. Yeah.
When you found out you had cancer, or I think maybe it was before, I think Aunt Joyce said something about you going, and
It was here in Hawkesbury that I found out I had cancer.
Right.
I went to the hospital here 2-3 times with pain, horrible pain. And a young doctor said to me, I'm going to make an appointment for you in Ottawa, because he says, I suspect that things are more serious than you think. So I went to Ottawa, and within a few days they had me diagnosed.
and living in Hawkesbury, as far as Dad, after you're gone, I think, did Aunt Joyce say something about
Yes,
taking care of
Aunt Joyce
family?
said that as much as she can, she'll try to take care of Dad, because Dad gets along with John. And when John talks to Dad, he's calm and they have fun together, and Dad knows that he's going to repeat his stories because of his sickness.
What does Uncle John have?
Uncle John has Alzheimer's, but he's still in stage 1, God bless him. But you have to be very patient with him, because he'll repeat a story that he told you maybe 50 times. But you have to sort of say, and sometimes I actually encourage him to say the story, because it gives him a chance to talk and to feel that he's part of the group. And Dad knows how to take care of that very well. So Joyce said, don't worry, he'll be fed and he'll be taken out, and we'll go together to do things. And Aunt Carol also. And he knows a few people around here. He knows a few people at our church. So he'd be better here than in Bell River, because there's family.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, we've got another section that we're moving on to about your kids. Do you want to keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
Cool.
Might as well finish it.
All right. This is a big question, because Because of how many kids. So there's how many children in your immediate family?
4, 3 sons and 1 beautiful daughter.
No, thank you. I did not pay her to say that.
But I expect to be paid.
I'll make you a delicious Ensure or Boost drink later.
No, you'll put ice cubes in mine, sure.
I will do whatever you want.
Okay.
Tell us about the birth/adoption of your children. You don't have to go into great detail. No gory details necessary.
No. Well, we got married and we wanted a family right away. Dad was a student at Syracuse University, working on his master's degree, and we felt that because of Ab's age, he was 25, he was the right age to start a family. So we had David. David was born in Syracuse, and the fall after David's birth, we moved to Thunder Bay. No, it was a year after David's birth, we moved to Thunder Bay. Dad was working at Lakehead, so Peter came along 2.5 years after David. And then I had a couple of miscarriages, and then we decided that's it, we're going to adopt, and we wanted a girl. We, meaning me. Dad wanted a girl also. And shortly after Annette was with us, lo and behold, Albert had had cancer and had medical treatment, and he was supposed to be sterile. Lo and behold, I'm expecting a baby, and Robert was born. So surprise, yeah.
What was it like having your first child, considering it was obviously your first pregnancy?
Oh, it was
everything was new.
Unbelievable. I cherished every moment. It was just a miracle. It's just you don't understand it till you go through it. Even the pain of birth, you forget it after, because it's well with me. I didn't have any pains. They froze me because David was too big for me, and he was upside down. Can you believe it? He was face up instead of face down.
What size were you then? Weight? Size,
when I got married, I weighed
height.
128.
How tall were you?
5'5.5". So.
And how?
David was 8 pounds 9 ounces.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he was 10 days late. Because the doctor told me, if you don't have this baby by Friday, I'm going to induce you, because that child is getting too big. Well, he did get too big.
In those days, was Dad allowed in the delivery room?
No, he wasn't allowed. The only time he was in the delivery room was when I was expecting Robert, because I had 2 water bags. So, and it took a little Australian nurse. She looked at me. She says, "Can you stand sideways, please? Get on the scales." And she says, "You're as skinny as can be, and she says, "I've never seen such a big belly for one baby." She says, "Have they told you that you're having twins?" I said, "No, nobody's told me that." Well, she says, "I suspect it. I don't hear 2 heartbeats, but I really suspect 2 twins. I expect twins." But then so I was terrified. I thought, oh my God, either this is going to be a monster or it's twins. And I thought, well, Dad should be there. So I told the doctor I want him there. And it was cute. The doctor said, "Well, we're not going to take care of him. If he faints, it's his problem. He's on the floor." So when the doctor said, "Oh my God, there's another one coming," Dad took a breath, and I saw the masks go into his mouth, like his white mask went into his mouth. Oh my goodness.
And that was Robert.
That was Robert, yeah. And he had to stay at the hospital a while after his birth because of all the water.
Right.
You know, there was too much water. Yeah.
What did David look like when he was born?
The nurses called him Buster Brown. He was big. He was cute, yeah, a big round face. And he had, that was the thing about David. He had blue eyes. When he opened his eyes, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I was expecting brown eyes or green eyes like Dad.
Yeah.
But he had blue eyes.
When did David's eye color change?
When he was about 1.5 years, it went to sort of grayish green, bluish green. It changed with the weather, his eyes. Yeah.
What was Dad like when, with a first child?
Oh my God, it's a joke. He didn't want me to do anything. I'll take care of him. I'll take care of him. Joyce had come down to help us because it was a rough birth. She'd come down during summer holidays because she was on teacher holidays. And she said, "Okay, you two, that's it. Sit down. I'm here to help. I'm taking care of him."
What was it like when, because back then they didn't allow you to hold the baby right away. Did they take the baby away and then bring David back?
Oh, they took the baby away, cleaned him up, weighed him, and David didn't even cry. It was just as if he'd been disturbed. He just went, ah. He was too comfortable. So I thought there was something the matter with him. He's not crying. And they said, no, he's fine.
What was it like the very first time holding your child? This is your firstborn.
Oh, you cry with joy. You just go crazy with joy. You can't believe it. And that's the miracle of life. Yeah.
What was it like giving birth to Peter?
Poor Peter. It was a dry birth. The water bag broke and it leaked for 3-4 days, and the doctor kept saying, "You're not ready, you're not ready." I finally went in, and it was a rough birth. But it went fast, thank God. It didn't last hours. And the funny thing was, the nurse put him in my arms, and I said, "That's not my baby." She says, "What's the matter with you?" I said, "My babies have blue eyes and blonde hair." And she checked the names on the bracelets, and she says, "Mrs. Bruley, I think we've given you a bit too much drugs. That is your baby." And here I am with black hair and brown eyes, and I'm expecting another blonde baby.
How are David and Peter different for like as infants?
Peter was very vocal. He cried a lot, and he had a lot of problems digesting. David he'd only cry when he was hungry, but Peter had lots of stomach cramps. His little knees would go up to his belly, and I could tell he was having, and Peter was a lot more alert. He learned everything twice as fast as David. He copied David to the point that he caught up to him. He used to get out of his playpen. He knew how to lift the bottom. And he was 13, 14 months old. He could get out of the playpen.
The reason safety features were built in stuff as time has moved on.
Yes,
for babies like Peter.
Yeah. And he was crawling everywhere so fast we thought he'd never stop and get up and walk. He was just crawling, running, crawling. It was the funniest crawl.
Was Dad in the delivery room when Peter was born?
No.
Still?
No, he wasn't allowed, no. And then we had the day when we went to get you.
Yes, tell me about the adoption.
That was cute. They told us there's a baby in Ottawa. So we drove down and spent Christmas with Mom and Dad. The first Monday after Christmas, we get a phone call. We have found a better baby for you in Thunder Bay. So we said, "Oh, when can we go up to pick up the better baby?" Well, they said anytime. So we didn't ask anything about Ottawa. We left because it was time to leave anyway. The weather was nice, and drove back to Thunder Bay. Then we all got dressed up nicely. The boys dressed up nicely, and we said, "We're going to go meet your baby sister." And we went to the adoption agency, and there you were, all dressed in yellow, the biggest smile, and you were not quite 3 months. You were 2.5 months, but you still had a smile. And the lady there said, the foster parents that kept this child didn't want to give her up. They loved her so much she never cried. And I thought, a baby that doesn't cry? And then the boys sort of looked at you and looked at your little fingers and took your booties off. I think it was booties, yeah. They took the booties off, looked at your little toes, and then they wanted to tickle you. And I said, "No, you don't tickle a baby." Can I pick her up? We said when you're at home and sitting down, you'll be able to hold her. So then they said, hey, let's take her. She's nice. She's like a little doll.
Everyone concurred.
Everybody concurred. So we got you, but we were terrified because your birth mother had rights on you till you were 3 months old. So we had two and a half, almost 3 weeks of worrying, but we had accepted that should she decide that she wanted you, we kept hoping. We said, my God, she's only 15 or 16. I mean, there's no way this girl has a big heart to give that baby away. And we all cried thinking about the fact that we could lose you. And we cried over your mother. I know I did. I cried a lot. I thought, poor young girl, having to give away a child that she carried. She must be such a good person. It broke my heart. And I used to pray for her and say, I wish her a good life, and I wish her a normal life later on, and a child so she can recuperate what she's lost. And you were the best baby on earth. We never heard you cry. We'd run to the crib and say, my God, she's not crying. Is she dead? We'd see if you were breathing. You never cried.
I was just sitting there hanging out.
Oh, you were just, as long as you were fed, you cried if you were stung, like you had black flies bite you one day. That was horrible. You cried over an earache, but to cry? And it was, oh, I have to tell you this too. This is such a funny moment. Grandma Bruley had her little fire at home. And so we kept her, no, it wasn't the fire. We had her because she had been sick or something. Yeah, and she slept in your room that night. Because Dad was going to take her to the clinic the next morning. Didn't want her to go alone. And anyway, she snored. We walked in the bedroom that morning. You were standing at the foot of the bed and you were imitating the snoring.
Gotta entertain myself.
And then Robert came, and Robert was a total surprise.
That was 2 years after me.
Yeah, I was terrified, pregnant for Robert, because I went to see Dr. Hartog, and he said, this child is not going to be normal. If I was you, I'd have an abortion. If you were my daughter, I'd give you an abortion tonight. I got up and walked out of the office, and I knew that there was a Dr. Malloy that was Catholic, and I phoned the secretary and told her what had happened, and that could I have him as my doctor. He phoned me back and said, please come and see me today. I went to see him. He said, meet me at the hospital at 4 at the General, and I will let you hear your baby's heartbeat, and I will tell you the size of his head. So he kind of calmed me down, and then he said, I'll do research for you. The next appointment, he said, this child will be number 12, born under the same circumstances. They were all boys, and they were all normal. There was nothing wrong with them physically. So, But that was scary, very, very scary, because Hartog took the sails out of the pregnancy, I tell you, to tell me a thing. And he lived 3 doors up from us, so, you know.
Different times.
Yeah, different times, yeah.
Oh, I mean, not.
Yeah.
Stuff still.
Yeah. And he, of
So
course,
sad.
had to stay in the hospital a week or 10 days after we got home, because he was in an oxygen tent, and they were monitoring him because of all the water I had. I had so much water that the baby suffered from it. But
So Dad was in the delivery room for the birth of Robert.
yeah, he sure was. Yeah. And he actually told me, I'm glad I'm not a woman. He actually had the guts to tell me. Oh.
What was it like having your 4th child as far as parenting goes? How did it change with each child?
Well, it was kind of getting harder because the boys were getting older and they had different needs. You and Robert were like a separate family because there was 6 years between Robert and
4.
and
Or between
Robert and David.
Between Robert and Peter.
Robert and Peter, yeah, sorry, and then David. There was he
Another
was
2.
he was 8.5. So you know it made a difference. You know, so it was like 2 families.
Yeah.
You know, because they were starting hockey and skiing and swimming lessons and piano lessons, and the 2 little ones had different demands. You know, bedtime stories, and they needed to be bathed while the others could do it themselves. So it just kind of, there was 2 families.
2 phases.
Yeah, yeah, 2 families. That's what it was like. It was a new kind of sandwich generation.
Do you remember the first time your children said "I love you" to you?
No,
No.
because they'd kiss us. We got kisses from you guys and hugs all the time, and the first time
It just happens.
it just happens, and there were so many times that you know. But I'll say something. All of you said "dada" before saying "mommy." And that is apparently true in every language.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't think Dad was just coaching us behind your back?
No. No, but apparently that's true. And I forget there was one language that dada meant uncle, or dad meant uncle. So, you know, why is this kid saying uncle?
Were any of us more affectionate than the others with you?
Yeah, Peter was wiry. He liked hugs, but not too many.
Yeah.
You know, Robert liked to be cuddled. You did, of course. You loved to be cuddled. You loved to have us put our hands through your hair. David was cuddly too. Yeah, he liked to be sung to. Yeah. Yeah.
What are your favorite memories about each of your children?
Well, I have different memories, but the ones that come to mind that are the strongest, but there were so many memories I could pick from. I'll start by age group. David loved to sing, and we used to sing "Row, Row Your Boat," and one day he said stop. And he sang "Row, Row Your Boat gently down the lane. Charlie, 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 Charlie." And he wanted Charlie. He didn't want to say merrily at all. No more merrily. And he insisted on that. And I thought to myself, what in the world is going on? And he was just little. He was barely 2.
He was rewriting the lyrics.
He was barely 2, and he changed it to Charlie. We live on Cherry Lane. He changed everything. Because we used to take Cherry Lane, because we lived on Oak and Windsor in Thunder Bay, we used to take Cherry Lane as a shortcut.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I'd say, here we go on Cherry Lane. So he liked the name, I think. Just, he liked the feel on his tongue, maybe. And Peter, Peter has to do with you. You're home, maybe with us 2 weeks or so. He's standing looking in the crib. And he says, "Is that all that babies do?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "They'll cry, they'll have their bottle, they want their diaper changed, and we pick them up and hug them, put them back to bed." "My gosh," he says, "she doesn't do anything." I said, "No." He says, "Well, you guys have to put a motor in her." He was a mechanic already.
You see, David's the musician, Peter's the
4 years old.
engineer.
4 years old. We had to put a motor in her already. And you, it's one of my favorite moments. There were many others, but this is my favorite. The boys were going skiing, and you were crying your head off. "I want to go ski, I want to go." And I said, "Never mind, we'll do something special." So I thought, well, we'll make cinnamon buns, and that was the first time you made cinnamon buns. I got all the flour and all the stuff out, and I said, "You stand on that little chair." I had a little apron on you. You had your hair tied on both sides with little ribbons. And when you got your hands in that dough to knead it, you looked like an old body. You looked like an old soul, the big smile, and you were just enjoying doing that. I thought, look at that. years old, or 4.5. You couldn't have been older than that. And there you were kneading that dough, and I'm looking at you. I got the camera. It was just too cute. The big smile, and you forgot about skiing, and you were so proud of those cinnamon rolls. Oh boy, I made you a treat for dessert. but
so begins my
but
relationship with food.
But to see such a
my job.
No, but to see such a tiny little person. You know, you were tall, but you were just a little kid. Squeezing that dough and the smile, you know. Oh.
I remember the tactile experience of it.
Yeah, and Robert, he wanted to pick up big words from everybody. And he's about 6. And he's eating a bowl of soup. And he was so proud. He found a hair. He says, "There's a hair in my soup. Do I expect sabotage?" We laughed so much. He had picked that up from the boys. Do I suspect? But for him, it was expect. Oh my God, that was so funny. We just roared at the table that night, and that stuck with me because he was so proud of having said that.
He is good with words.
Yes, he is. In spite of everything, he could have been an actor. He can memorize stuff and repeat it all to you, and you're just shocked. Yeah.
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 What did you love, or what do you love most about being a parent?
At this stage in life, the results of what we've done. Because when we go through it, we can't think of what's going to happen. We can't. And we were the type of parents that we weren't going to be down the kid's throat or on their neck saying you have to be A's and you have to get A's and you have to do this. We felt that we would let you guys choose what you want according to your will because it's your life. And I know as a teacher that a lot of my colleagues were cracking the whip at home. You'd better bring home an A in that math test, and you'd better... I never believed in that. Never. So we had no idea what careers you guys would choose or what you'd end up doing, you know? So now that we look back and look at everything and look at the personalities and the strong points that each of you had, we can see how you fit into those jobs. Yeah, like you're a people person. You need people around you at all times. Crowds. The only one that disappoints us is Robert, and it's his illness, and I know that he spurted on using drugs. And we found out in the courses that we took, and I want to say this particularly because I want him to know that we understand. When we took the courses about people bipolar or schizophrenic or any of those people in that gamut of sicknesses, they hide behind drugs and liquor because it's easier to be told, oh, you're drunk. You know, you're just being foolish, you're drunk. Rather than be told, you are insane. You are crazy. And it takes them twice as long to accept the disease than it takes a patient to accept cancer. It doesn't show on them. They're handsome. Most of them are well-dressed, and you can't say they're sick when you see them walking down the street. So for them, it's twice as hard because then they know that they're in a different category of people and that it's hard for them to be accepted. So it's a big problem. But when you understand the disease and you take the medicine, and when you see that you're getting out of control or that things aren't quite normal, if you take the medicine, you'll realize it. But if you get off the meds all the time, it's just not going to happen for you. You're going to believe all the things that go through your head. And they believe it as if it's written in stone, which is tough. Can I have a drink yet? Thank you.
Do you want a straw?
No, it's fine.
What is the most difficult aspect of being a parent? A difficult part?
being honest with them. It's very hard because you don't want to hurt their feelings. You don't want to upset the cart, but sometimes you feel that you have to open your mouth and say something. And it gets worse as they get older and they're married or whatever, because then you really have to be zipped and not say a word, and you have to be careful not to create marital problems or so it gets hard because you have to learn to shut up. That's very hard. And even when they're young, when you see them get out of control doing certain things and you feel that you've got to discipline them, you sort of think, well, I did that as a kid, but you have to be honest and say, that's not acceptable, you know, and give them the punishment. And that part is hard too. Like you said, when you say, you know, you're grounded for 2 weeks and you know damn well that it's a big punishment. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
This is the last question about your children. Difficult one. What's it like to lose a child?
It's losing a part of yourself. It's losing a part of your heart. It shouldn't be like that. The parent should go first, not the child. Because every child you have, you love them, and you love them all in different ways and in different reasons and different, because every child brings a new perspective, a new gift to the family. But when you lose one, you can never get over it. You learn to live with it, but you can't get over it. We were listening to a mass the other day on Sunday, as a matter of fact, and they were offering it for the deceased relatives of a family, and they had lost a son, and they were just celebrating his first anniversary. Dad grabbed my hand, and both of us started to cry. You never ever get over it. I had an aunt that lost a 5-year-old, and she went into major depression. She didn't go out of the house for 6 months. She didn't want to talk to anybody.
Aunt Bertha.
Yeah, and we all thought she was crazy. And she had adopted that little child because she couldn't have kids herself. Now I know what she went through, but I felt that I couldn't get myself into depressions. I had to be still alive because David wouldn't have wanted that. But I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It's enough of that.
Okay. I'm gonna stop. We've been going for 55 minutes anyway. So.
That's enough. Yeah, nobody's gonna.
Okay, we are back. It is Monday, October 11th. It is Thanksgiving Day 2021. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Annette. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you.
We have a lot to be thankful for.
We do. How are you feeling?
You and Aunt Carol are the Thanksgiving turkeys.
That's not fair just because our birthdays fall over Thanksgiving. How are you feeling today?
I feel a lot better today. I feel calm and comfortable.
Good. All right, we're going to roll back into the last section of our questions. And the first question today is, what does friendship mean to you, and has that evolved over time?
Friendship is a lovely thing to be part of, because you meet the people you need at the right time. You may not be friends forever, but there are friends for different stages in life. And it's part of growing up and part of understanding life and understanding people. You grow apart because you don't have much in common anymore, but you have the memories of the good times you had together. And the friends you make in your youth are very different from the friends you make as you age. So I've been blessed with a lot of good friends from my childhood right up to this stage in life.
Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions that are very much about yourself. What do you think is your best trait?
I don't know. I've never thought of that. I've never really thought of it. But when I undertake something, I give it my all. And that I would think would be the first thing that I think of as a trait, that I'm tenacious with what I undertake.
What do you feel most passionate about? Or what, not most, what do you feel passionate about? Could be many things.
Well, many things. First of all, my children, my family, my husband, my sisters, and then my friends. And passionate about living a good life. Trying to do the best you can. You foul up sometimes because you get impatient and you get upset and you get selfish about your thoughts and your actions, but you kind of overcome it, and as you age you see that it's going to happen sooner or later because you are human and you slip. So I'm passionate about my family more than anything else.
How have you grown as a person throughout your life?
Well, you start off as a cute little teenager and then a cute little first-year bride, and you think that you're the kingpin, and you think that you're just God's gift to people, and then as you age you start to realize that everybody's in the same struggle, everybody's in the same, more or less, facing life and growing with it. And I feel that I've grown into a much better person because I used to tend to judge people by what they looked like or how they spoke or what they did, and I soon got over that as I've aged, and soon found out that the kindest hearts are not always in the cutest bodies, and that the cutest people are not always the people that you should trust. So I've grown to try as best I can to accept people where they are and to respect them for everything. And I've grown that way, and I've grown also in finding out what life is all about. And after 80 years of fooling around on earth, I've come to the conclusion that love, I don't mean sexual love, I mean love and respect of people is the most important trait and the most important characteristic that you should spend time developing, and thanking God for everything that He's put before you. And I would say that summarizes it for me.
What would you say is the most difficult moment you've overcome in your life? Or maybe there's more than one, I don't know.
Oh my God. Losing my parents. Losing my son. Being away from my family for so many years. Raising my kids in Thunder Bay while everybody else was together.
How did you get through those times?
Oh, lots of telephone calls, lots of summer visits, lots of letters and cards, but it was never the same. It was never the same. But there were compensations for all that, and what
Such
else?
as?
Well, such as knowing that my husband was happy with his work, and he was happy to be near his mother, who was a widow, and I can understand that. And raising children in a different area, they were exposed to different things. Thunder Bay was an industrial town with paper mills, and most of the people were of the same category as far as salaries went and income went. So it was easy to fit in, and the kids had a great childhood, skiing and swimming and camping and traveling, and we were able to give them a little bit more opportunities, and that was good for my family.
Is there anything in your life that you wish you had done differently?
Oh, I don't know. There's no point looking over spilt milk and trying to analyze what I could have done differently. I think I tried my best, and I haven't always made the best choices, but all in all, I think I'm pretty satisfied with what I've had. So I wouldn't change anything.
No regrets.
No, I have no regrets.
What has surprised you in your life?
Well, I saw my kids growing up, and with 3 boys and 1 girl, I knew one day I'd be a grandparent, but I never thought of the joy the grandkids would bring. It's a bigger joy than having your own kids, because you see that because of your life, all these people are here, and you can hardly believe it. And I've been blessed so much, 10 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. That's unbelievable. And I'm sure there'll be more grandchildren, because Peter only has 3 kids married. So there's going to be a lot. And I hope they're not all determined and stubborn like me. But they're so beautiful, and each one of them is so different. It's so beautiful to look at all this. And it's a shame that, again, we're separated by miles and miles. David's kids in Vegas and Peter's kids outside of Minneapolis. It's not easy when you're older to pick up and travel all the time, and it has to be long-term travel, because we just can't go for a weekend and come back. It's too tiring. So, but I've got to know them as best I can under the circumstances, and I'm so happy to have them all.
What are you most proud of?
My family. My kids. They've all done according to their skills and according to their talents. They've done as best they can. And even Robert, who's sick, has his moments of love and charity. I'm so proud of each and every one of you. Really, really pleased. You haven't heard us very much. There's been the odd little spiff here and there, but nothing to destroy love. And that's so beautiful. And it makes me cry to think that I'm leaving them all.
But you say you never leave us.
Well, I'll be with you on the other side for sure. I'll be watching and praying over you, I know that. Trying to keep you safe and out of harm. What else can I do? If I get to heaven, I might be an eternity in purgatory, who knows?
The drama. Speaking of love.
I have to be dramatic.
So speaking of love, what does love mean to you, and has that changed over time?
Love means everything, and it has changed over time. It has grown, and it has opened so many doors.
What were your expectations when you were a teenager up to the point where you had met Dad, got married?
Well,
and your experiences of love from your parents and sisters, and
my family.
What were your expectations of it when you're that young?
When I was young, I didn't really think of it. I enjoyed so much being part of a family, because Mom always tried to make things so nice for us. We were as poor as mice, and she used to prepare tea parties at lunchtime when we were in high school. We would come home, the table would be set with something in the middle, either an African violet or leaves or something, and she'd had little sandwiches with the crust taken off and fancy cups and plates just to give us some pleasure. And she always tried, Mom and Dad always tried to make the holidays Christmas special and Easter and beautiful meals, and they would really stretch their budget to make things nice for us. We never had holidays, but we had nice times at home. And we were encouraged to do the best we could. We were never stopped from wanting to try things out as long as they were half decent and not dangerous. And then my sisters, we got along so well. Yeah, we had lots of good times together. We made our own fun.
And then when you met,
Then when
got
I met,
older, and
well, I had a couple of boyfriends, 3 boyfriends, and I wasn't madly in love with them. They were just nice to go out with. But when I met Albert, it's funny, on the first date I came home and I said to Mom, I said, I think I've met the man that I'm going to marry. Something attracted me to him like you wouldn't believe it. He was gentle, he was kind, he liked to talk, he wasn't boastful, he was humble, he wasn't full of himself like some of the young engineers I'd met at the paper mill, at the lab. The summer students would come and they were just showing off, full of themselves, but Dad wasn't like that at all. On the contrary, he was as humble as they can be. But he had qualities that attracted me, and as I got to know him, I fell in love madly with him. It didn't take too long that I knew that we'd be married soon.
and then did your ideas about love change when you had kids?
Oh my God, when I had kids, my ideas of love exploded. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was just overwhelming. It was so joyful and so beautiful. Dad and I used to argue who's going to change the baby. We loved our kids so much. It was unbelievable.
Did your ideas about love change beyond that? Anything happen? New perspectives?
Yes, Dad had cancer very young, and the doctor told me, he said, I can't give you a prognosis, but he said, if you're halfway bright, he says, I'd suggest you go back to university and study in case your husband should die. And that opened my eyes to the point that I went back and I gave up a lot of fun things that I was doing, and I threw myself into my studies, and because I knew that should he die, at the time we had David and Peter, and we had made all the papers to get Annette. And Annette came, and I was interviewed by Children's Aid, and they said, look, if your husband is sick like that, you shouldn't adopt. And I said, no way. I said, we've been talking about this baby coming, and if I was pregnant accepting this baby, I'd have to accept the baby. And I said, because we've talked about it, and we have prepared for it. I said, we've been going through this process now for months on end. I said, I do not want to change my mind. So I knew that if anything happened to Albert, I'd be alone to raise 3 kids. And I knew that I had to give them the life that Albert and I had planned and wanted for our children. So that showed me, after it was all over and done with, it showed me that love was the most powerful incentive ever. And lo and behold, Albert lived through it all and was cured, and everything has been fine ever since. But I was prepared. And I think that gave Dad a lot of hope when he saw what I was doing. I think it made him understand that should he leave because of cancer, should he die, that I was able to take over and cope, and I think that helped him cure.
has anything changed? Not changed, but how have you viewed or received love in the last 6 months?
Oh my God, overwhelmingly. Coming out of the woodwork. Friends from years ago showing up at the door or giving me a phone call. My sisters dropping on me almost every day, delivering me iced coffees and all kinds of things, coming to do my hair, to offer to clean the house and all kinds of things. My daughter coming every 2 weeks to spend a week with me. Peter coming from Minneapolis. Lori and the kids phoning and sending notes. Then nephews dropping by with their kids. And it's just unbelievable. Beth, George, Megan, Stefan, Maria, Jeffrey, Kevin, Monique. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. But it's just been so beautiful. So beautiful.
Have you ever doubted love in any way? Like, questioned?
Well, you get expectations of what you think love is from watching TV and watching movies and reading books and looking at other people, the way they're behaving, but you have to establish your own patterns, your own. You can't go on what's the public image. You're kind of indoctrinated into that kind of stuff, and it's not true, it's artificial. You can't think that, you're going to be in a little house with a white picket fence and you'll run to meet your husband at the door and a big kiss every day. I mean, that is really, really Hollywood, but that's not what love is. Love is giving yourself to make other people comfortable, happy, and making them feel comfortable and accepting them. I can't define it any other way.
All right, you got 2 big questions to finish here. What do you think is the meaning of life? If you were to speculate.
That's very simple. It's love. It's nothing else but love. You are put on earth. You have a mission to accomplish. You're not aware of what it is because you don't know where the road's going to lead you. But as you get older and you look back, you see that it was planned in a way for you. And if you made the right decisions, it turned out. If you didn't, well, other things happened, and you wouldn't be as happy as when you, at least for me, I wouldn't be as happy had I made stupid decisions, had I said I don't want kids and I don't want this and I don't want to do that. I was always open to what we needed and wanted as a couple, and to me love is that, and God put us here, and when our mission is over, well, it's time to go back to Him because He created everything. And it's hard to say goodbye. And that's a sign right there that it's love that's the most important. Because if you didn't love, you wouldn't care.
Last question, Mom. Doing great.
It's very hard, isn't it?
I know.
It's very hard to open yourself up like that, but I'm glad I'm doing it.
What do you think happens after someone passes away?
People remember you, and I hope they remember the the good times. And I hope they don't spend their time bawling and everything, because we know we'll be together. But it's selfish for the person dying, because the person dying feels, well, I'm leaving everybody, but you've got to be selfish at this point in life. You have to. You have to cry over what you're leaving. But
I think the best thing is to remember good memories, good times, happy times. Times where we were there for each other in good times and bad times. And that's about all I can say about it. Because there's nothing else in life. I know we struggle to do this and that, and we have little deaths as we get older. Our children grow up, our house is empty, we mourn the empty house. We get older, we mourn our job after we leave it. We think, oh, can't wait to retire. But after you retire, you think, oh, I worked so hard to do all that. So we go through a series of little bits of dying. We look in the mirror and say, oh, I used to be so beautiful and so didn't have a pot belly and baggy boobs, and look at me now, you know. We are programmed to be terminated, and it's very easy to understand as you get older. When you're young, you don't think of it, but when you go through the stages, when you go through life, period, you get to see it and understand it. And in a way, it helps us through, because we can't be little gods forever. We have to fade away. And I love all of you, and I think that's enough.
Yeah.
God bless all of you. I love you so much, all of you. I could never repay the stuff you've done to me or for me. It's heartbreaking to say goodbye, but I trust that you'll have some good memories. And I ask forgiveness for anything that I've done to hurt you or slight you. Or most of the time, it's not even intentional. It's just the spur of the moment, something that somebody says, and it creates a lot of problems. And I ask forgiveness.
Thanks, Mommy. It's a lot of questions, and you
Yeah, it was an awful
hit
lot.
it out of the ballpark.
It was too much.
But you did it, and I think
Oh, I know, but it was too much.
all the generations are gonna appreciate.
Oh, I don't know if they will or not, but it's from my heart.
Yeah. Thank you, Mom. Love you.
Goodbye, everybody. Actually helped me face my death coming. You know that?
Really?